Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today as part of our TISOH Hospitality Fall Speaker Series. My name is Anthony Lai, Student Affairs Program Manager here at TISOH. Our special guest this afternoon is TISOH instructor and HR consultant Nelandra Anselmo. Today's topic is titled, Love It, Don't Leave It, How to Reinvigorate Your Passion at Work. Today's topic, Nelandra will examine common challenges that contribute to workplace burnout and help you develop strategies to overcome the common stresses you may have experienced at work. Nelandra will also explore topics related to your work style, personality, interests, personal values, and learn to better align those traits to work with your work activities to better increase your overall job satisfaction. If you have questions for Nelandra during this webinar, please type it in on the Q&A feature or on the chat feature and submit your questions. So Nelandra, I'm going to hand over the speaker to you. If you don't mind sharing us a little bit about yourself and then proceed with your presentation.
Sure, absolutely. I think you said everything we needed to say, Anthony. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I do have a background in human resources, and I've worked in corporate HR roles for over 20 years. I currently do run an HR consulting firm where I do executive coaching, career transition, and career decision-making work. And so this is a topic that I really do love talking about. So we're looking at loving your job and not leaving it, which is, I think, a really interesting thing to be talking about right now, given that everyone is working differently. So as we look at how to reinvigorate our passion for work, we want to keep a couple of things in mind. Whether you are working for a small company, a large organization, or whether you're a business owner, I think we all have our unique challenges for staying engaged and feeling really satisfied with what we do. And so my hope is that when we're done talking today, we'll have at least each of you will have a couple of little nuggets that you'll get to take away with you, and maybe that you can apply to your own situation to feel like you're recharging your batteries at work. So let's go ahead and look at our agenda for this afternoon. We're going to look at the factors of job satisfaction, and this is really what the research tells us, what the experts tell us we need, what the formula is for being satisfied with your work. We'll then look at how personality and work style really may affect what you're doing, your job, how your work is assigned, and how you go about really your day. We definitely are going to talk about burnout, the B word, and how to address that and manage the things that go along with that. And then we'll look at some personal strategies, things that you can use for kind of, like I said, recharging your batteries, and some things that you can do to address your work environment. And again, I understand that some of you have a lot of control over your work environment and some of you don't have a lot of control over your work environment, but we will have something for everyone. So our topic really is employment exhaustion. And we really can't talk about that, I don't think, without talking about the exhaustion that we all feel, the emotional exhaustion that we probably all are feeling right now. Whether you're working from home or whether you are doing some kind of adjusted work or assignment at your job, it certainly is going to be different. And change alone is going to take a toll on how we perform our jobs and how we feel about work. These things can contribute to whether we feel satisfied right now. And so we have to understand that, the current situation could be clouding our judgment about whether we like work or not, whether we are happy. So let's take a look at this list. Here's one thing that we know, the two biggest factors in stress for people inside work and outside of work for any person in any situation is uncertainty and lack of control. And, you can stop and think for yourself whether you have felt in the last few months, in the last, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 or 10, a sense of uncertainty or a feeling that you just don't have any control over what's going to happen next. And again, just like it affects us outside of work, it's going to affect how we do our jobs as well. And then we have, another thing that we may all be feeling is guilt feelings. And so generally, we don't talk about feelings of guilt when we're talking about your work environment. But let's think about this. What if somebody you know or somebody in your workplace has been laid off or lost a job? That's something that unfortunately is pretty common right now. And so we may feel, these feelings of guilt associated with work. Like, why is that person not working and I am? I feel really bad. Is there anything that I could do? Maybe I could have done something different. We call it survivor guilt. There's also a sense of guilt sometimes that comes from working from home. And even though we can get just as much stuff and maybe more things done at home, just the work arrangement sometimes where we're able to be home with our families and in the comfort of our home sometimes leaves us feeling like, well, maybe I could be doing more or should be. There's always the shoulds involved in that. So feelings of guilt certainly could be a part of our work experience right now. Another thing that we know, what puts us at the greatest risk for feeling bad, for feeling unwell or stressed at work is this sense of low self-efficacy. And this really means your ideas about whether what you're doing is good enough, whether it's helping, whether it really matters or makes a difference, whether what you're contributing is what you need to be contributing. Again, as we're working differently, these are things that might cross our minds. And then, of course, the last two, family concerns, whether it's dealing with the health of a family member or the loss of a family member, or whether you're struggling with how to make sure your kids get their schoolwork done. I've heard that one a lot lately, or even, family financial issues. All of those right now are of concern. And of course, isolation, just not working with people the way that we normally do. And for some of us, that isolation can be a really big difference based on what we were doing before. Either way, this is the general state of the union for everyone when we think about work. And so are we all feeling some level of each of these? Sure. And so the bottom line here is you may not want to be thinking about, you may not want to be gauging whether or not you love your job based on what your job looks like right now. This is the talk sometimes that I do at different times, at different times. And so it's definitely a different conversation now. So basically what I'm saying is you may not want to be thinking about making big life changes or work changes right now, or when you have so many other things going on emotionally and other stressors. You may not want to be making a change like that unless you have to, unless you have to. And so that is the caveat for today. Today's topic is love your job, don't leave it, not love it or leave it. So let's keep that in mind. So we said we're going to look at the factors of job satisfaction. So understand that I have 10 of them up here. And depending on who conducts the research or the survey or who they ask, these generally will fall in different rankings on the list. So these aren't necessarily ranked, but we generally will see these specific items when we look at the factors that contribute to people really feeling happy at work, feeling satisfied with what they do. I'll start off by saying this. The most recent job satisfaction survey that I found, which was last year in 2019, said that about 54% of people are satisfied with their work. 54% of people are happy, are satisfied with their jobs. And you think, wow, that's pretty low. That's just a little above half. But one thing that I want you to understand is that every year they do this survey, 54 is really the highest that I've seen it in a long time. I wonder if somebody took that survey right now, what that would look like. But when you look at this formula, these 10 factors involved in job satisfaction, no matter who conducts it, like I said, they're in different rankings. I'll tell you what, salary sometimes is pretty low on the list and other times is top on the list. But one thing that will consistently seem to pop up on the top of the list is appreciation for your work, feeling appreciated for the job that you do. And so another thing that I know, another thing that research tells us is when people have voluntarily left their jobs, when they decide to leave a job, about 75% of them do so because they don't feel appreciated for the work that they do. And I want you to think about whether or not you've ever left a job before and whether that was a contributing factor, whether you felt appreciated for the work that you do. The number two, good relationships. So a while back, the Gallup company This is a company that does like the Nielsen ratings and, a lot of different surveys. The Gallup company came up with an employees engagement survey. Actually, it's like satisfaction engagement survey. And they boiled all these things down. They're asking about benefits and about relationship with supervisor, all the things on this list, job security. They're asking about all those things. They boiled it down to 12 questions. It's called the Gallup Q12. Take a look at that if you want a quick way to survey your workforce. But it was called the Gallup Q12 because they said within these 12 questions, if we ask every employee these 12 questions, we can be pretty certain based on how they answer these 12 questions, whether or not your employees are engaged. So I'm going to tell you what the number one question was that correlated with job satisfaction. The number one question that had the highest correlation with job satisfaction didn't have to do with pay or benefits or working conditions or any of that. The question was, I have a best friend at work. Do you have a best friend at work? That was it. For the people who said, yes, I do, it turned out that they were the most engaged and satisfied at work. So relationships matter. Ask yourself as you go down this list, which of these are built into your current work culture and your work environment? And which of these are present in your current position? As we start to evaluate what it really means to, recharge and become passionate about your work again, let's start with this list. How many of these things are available? I don't think anybody's calling in by phone, but I'll read them. Good relationships with colleagues, good work-life balance, good relationships with your superiors, the company's financial stability, job security, learning and career development, a nice fixed salary, interesting job or interesting work, and company values. These are all the things that we're going to talk about today. Before we go on, I also want to make another thing clear, that there are different things that motivate different people at work. So as we have this discussion about how to make sure that you fall in love with your job again, or for the first time for that matter, we have to understand what motivates people, and different things motivate different people. There are intrinsic motivators and rewards and extrinsic motivators. Obviously, the intrinsic rewards come from inside of you. They don't have anything to do with things that you receive. It's embedded into the work itself, like a sense of achievement, a passion for what you're doing, a contribution, a sense of fulfillment. These are things that you can only get from inside yourself, and they are kind of built into the work that you do. So these things like achievement, challenge, enjoyment, a sense of purpose and growth. For some people, that's what motivates them. That's what does it for them. For others, it's those extrinsic motivators or rewards. So salary, benefits, bonuses that you get, extra perks or gifts that you receive for doing your job. And so when you think about these, ask yourself, am I a person that is motivated intrinsically or extrinsically? Compare this to your current work situation. What motivates you? And does your job provide opportunities for both of these things, or for the one that primarily motivates you? So throughout today's presentation, I'm going to ask you to kind of question yourself. I guess we can call it journaling if you wanted to get out a pen and paper and write things down. But ask yourself these questions about your current job. What motivated me to apply for this job in the first place? And for some of you, you might be new to your job, and for others, you may have been doing it for a while, but what motivated you to apply in the first place? Why did you want to do this job or this work or work at this organization? This may get you closer to understanding your level of job satisfaction. And then the next question is, what inspires me to do the work that I do? What inspires you? So I'll give you a moment to think about that. I really like to think of this as a workshop. So if you have your pen and paper, feel free to be taking down some notes. But this will definitely get to the heart of what gets you up in the morning. So as we go on, we're going to, we've talked about motivation. Now let's talk about personality and work style. So obviously, these things are going to factor into how you feel about the job that you're doing. It's kind of what you bring to the work that you do. And sometimes it's about fit, whether or not your unique set of characteristics or traits or style or personality is a good fit for the job that's assigned to you, the work that's assigned to you day to day. There are lots of theories and models related to personality and work style. If we look at one of the simplest ones, the most basic ones, we find that people really can be said to possess certain traits. They can, or a combination of traits. They can either be task oriented or people oriented, task focused or people focused, or they can be process or results focused in their work. And so let's talk for a moment about how this kind of translates into the level of satisfaction that you have with what you're doing. So let's say you're people focused. The people, and we all, if we're not a people person, we know a people person. The people are focused on relationships. They try and figure out how to get things done with and through people. The relationships are the most important. This is what they focus on above anything else. If they have a problem to solve, they are going to start asking everyone else what they think about how to solve the problem. If you are more task focused, and I talk about this a lot, so if you have gone to any of my other talks, you've heard me talk about people focused and task focused. But if you're task focused, you have more of a focus on really the task at hand, proficiency, efficiency, and not necessarily focused on others' input or opinions. And so every job, I think, needs all of these parts. But the question is, are you a people person forced to focus more on tasks in your day-to-day, or are you a task person who is having to flex and kind of go outside of yourself to connect with people when that's not your natural tendency? So think about whether or not you're having to flex or stretch, and think about what your natural tendencies are. So again, it's hard to just look at this and say, well, I'm this or I'm that. It really does take a deeper analysis. And a lot of times we'll do things like work style and personality assessments. And, there are a lot out there. I use a lot of them in my practice, but, to really understand. And then we have processes and results. So those people who are results oriented, they're the big picture thinkers. And the process people, they're kind of at a slower pace. They don't always have their eye on the prize at the end. They're more concerned about the details of what's right in front of them. They focus on the step by step, each step, and not really looking at the big picture. Whereas a results person, they are just wanting to, check that box off and get to the end. And you'll hear a lot of times a results person say, here's what the finished product needs to look like. I don't care how it happens. And especially if that person is not people focused either, it's really going to sound like that. Here's what the end result needs to look like. Everybody else, you figure it out. It just needs to happen. So you might hear a little bit of yourself in that. Either way, if you are a process person and you're being pulled to look at big picture things or at a faster pace than you're used to, that is going to stress you out. And if you're a results person looking at the end result and you are forced to focus on minute details and structure and step by step, that is also going to exhaust you. So ask yourself, in your current job or in your current assignment, again, are you having to expend extra energy to work outside of your natural tendency? And I wish I could see everybody, because I'd ask if this feels like it's something that you can relate to, this sense of exhaustion or stress or strain when you're having to work outside of your comfort zone. I'm imagining people nodding their heads, yes, that it makes sense. So when there's a misalignment there, or when you're constantly having to flex, this can cause burnout. And so now it's time to talk about that. When we think about burnout, really the short definition is that it's a physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. It's just that you are exhausted for whatever reason. And it's a cumulative process, which means it kind of develops over time. What I'll also say about burnout is other people know you're burned out before you do. Other people see it. Other people see some of the examples that I'm going to give in the next slide. So burnout can also come from constant web meetings and Zoom calls, without being able to physically be in touch with people or without a lot of physical activity. It can come from lack of social connection. So burnout takes a lot of different forms. And I think lately we're finding a lot of the new forms of burnout, new forms that it can take. But here's what it looks like. It looks like apathy, like you just don't care, or maybe anxiety or irritability. You're more short with people, or snappy or snippy with them. And like I said, other people will know that you're burned out before you do, because they might say things like, "Whoa, hey, what's wrong with you? Hey, you look tired. Why don't you go ahead and take a break?" When people start saying that, then it could be that we're looking at job burnout. Behaviorally, what it might look like is avoidance. Maybe I don't want to show up for these meetings. Maybe I don't want to show up for work. Maybe I want to procrastinate on work because I'm just exhausted, either from the work itself or from the way that the work is being done. We might also try to do things to kind of be in denial about it, which means do things to cover up or to escape. And that could be extreme behaviors, any of the process addictive kinds of behaviors, drinking too much coffee or alcohol for that matter, not on the job, of course, but just kind of those escape things that we do, watching too much TV, playing too many video games, whatever it is. That's another sign of burnout, is when we try to look to something else to just kind of get away from it. Physically, we might actually get sick, and stress really will cause lots of ailments, but we may get sick, and certainly we will feel exhausted. You're going to feel pessimistic and cynical. There's basically a rigidity that develops. It's hard for you to feel creative. It's hard for you to problem solve. Those are the kinds of things that we see. And so here are the things to be on the lookout for. If you're feeling indifferent about things or easily frustrated around work, blaming others, like I said, that irritability for sure. Just no feelings, feeling numb, isolation or disconnection from other people. We have to put poor self-hygiene up here. This is the one where you go to the Zoom meeting, but you don't turn your video on. So that kind of stuff could be happening. Or if you're just tired or overwhelmed. And again, feeling like a failure. Remember that self-efficacy one we talked about, not feeling like you're making a difference or doing enough or doing it right. So sometimes it might feel like you're just working harder, but not getting more done. So it feels like you're just kind of spinning your wheels, putting a lot of energy and effort in, but not getting a lot out. There's actually a scientific word for this idea of when your input exceeds your output. It's called inefficient, is what it's called. So what you want to do is make sure that you're working efficiently and make sure that your output is greater than your input. If you're experiencing burnout, you will not love your job. So this is why we talk so long about this. If you are burned out, nothing we can say or do is going to help you feel satisfied, fulfilled, or feel like you love your job. And if you leave a job and go to a next one, that could address the issue and maybe not. So that's why we say, that's why we're going to take a look at some of our strategies to kind of get re-engaged and back on track. So we don't think about looking for something else and maybe just extending a problem without solving a problem. So this is the section that I call gaining control. That's what it says in writing, but in my head, it's getting a grip. So let's talk about, when we talk about gaining control, we have to really think about the things that you have control over and the things that you don't have control over. At work, when there are things that aren't going well or stressing you out, or you feel like they're not the way that you want them to be, they usually fall into a couple of categories. Organizational, which means it has to do with the job itself, or extra organizational, meaning that you bring it to the party, that personal stuff. So generally, if things don't feel quite right for you, it's going to fall into one of these four categories. I call it the 4 Ps. Priorities, processes, people, or it's going to be personal. So those organizational ones, the 3 top ones: priorities, processes, people. That's the what, the how, and the who. So priorities means like your workload, the deadline, the amount of work that you have to do, and in what order you have to do them. You may not have a lot of control over that, and you may have control over it. Processes, that's the how. How are things getting done? Are there bottlenecks? Are there things that are slowing us down? Are there, processes that are so tedious and so time intensive and have so much, cause us to put so much effort into them, are they making it feel like it's just not worth it? And then, of course, the people at work. Again, you certainly cannot control other people. Priorities, processes, you might be able to control a little bit. People, you cannot. But I'll tell you the thing that you absolutely can control, and that's that bottom one, the extra organizational, the personal stuff. And so this is where you kind of take a look at what things you can do on your own and for yourself to make a difference, to get re-engaged at work. So let's look at that. Let's look at managing your personal energy. So when I say energy, I'm going to say, think of each of these types of energy: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Think of them as tanks, tanks that you can fill up if you want. And also, if you can fill them up, that means tanks that can be drained or emptied. So if you think about filling these tanks up, you are going, if you show up to work with full tanks, you are going to be able to perform better at work, connect with the organization's goals, be able to identify your own goals and make sure that you feel like you're making accomplishments at work. You'll feel happier, you'll feel healthier. And so when we look at these, you have to pay attention to managing this personal energy. First of all, is your physical energy. Obviously, this comes from what you eat, what you put into your body, your fitness, your sleep. Again, are you showing up to work tired or sleepy or hangry for that matter? If you are not showing up with that tank full, that's definitely going to affect not only your job performance, but really your attitude about the work that you do. So you think about all the things that you would do to keep this tank full. Eat right, get enough sleep, get enough physical activity. And it may not seem like that has a direct connection to your job satisfaction, but believe me, it does. And then we look at your mental energy. And this is your ability to focus. This is how you learn new things, creative. So here's the thing: do you have opportunities to learn and be creative at work? And if not, are you taking the time to do those things outside of work? Meaning, when was the last time you read a book for fun? Not for work as a work assignment, not a work report, but when's the last time you read a book for fun? When's the last time you did a puzzle or a game that really engaged your brain and your mind versus watching, mindlessly watching TV or Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or whichever ones, we have. So think about keeping that tank full and what it would take to keep that tank full for you. You have to kind of exercise your brain. That is definitely a muscle and you have to exercise it so you can flex it. So what if you were to show up for work feeling focused, feeling knowledgeable, feeling creative? That's your mental energy tank. And if you manage that appropriately, it certainly is going to affect your work performance and your work satisfaction. Let's look at our emotional tank. Have you ever said to yourself, oh, I can't deal with that person. I don't have the energy. I'm too exhausted to deal with that person. That person might be a coworker, that person might be a friend or family member, but whatever it is, you have to understand your relationships with other people and also have the self-awareness to understand how to manage your own emotions. How often do you find yourself getting angry or irritable at a situation that you have no control over? How often do you find yourself, in a full-on argument with somebody in the middle of the grocery store about toilet paper? It's a little joke there. That has not happened to me, but I think that it has happened to other people. Not out there, but I think it's happened to people in this world. So what I'm saying is understand how to keep your emotions at bay. And what you may have to do is ask yourself, how do I get along with people in the workplace? Whether it's guests or clients or vendors, how do I get along with people outside of the workplace? What you might be asked to do is to eliminate what we call environmental toxins, including people. You might have to limit the amount of time that you spend with a person if they drain that tank. So you have to make sure your emotional tank is full. And then, of course, spiritual. And by spiritual, I just mean, what is the purpose of all of this? Why are you working? Why are you doing this? Why do you go to work every day? And does it align with your personal goals and your personal values? The highest engagement and job satisfaction comes from an individual feeling like their own personal goals and values match those of their organization. Again, if you are a business owner, then my hope is that your personal goals and values are reflected in your company. If you work for someone else, stop and think about, again, your company's mission and your company's values, and do those match who you are as a person? So if that tank is full, then you will have no problem showing up for work every day and giving 100%, because not only are you helping your organization to be successful, you are contributing to achieving your own personal goals. So the next question that I'll ask you, if you are journaling along with me today, ask yourself what your personal values are. And remember, values are like your compass. Whatever the things are that you value, if you are living in accordance with those values, people are going to see that in your actions and behaviors every day. They're going to see it in what you do, who you hang out with, how you spend your time, how you spend your money. So for a lot of people, a personal value might be things like integrity, or fun and adventure, or friendships, or knowledge and learning, or health and wellness, or family, whatever it is. Ask yourself, are you able to live those values at work? Ask yourself if those align with your organization's values. And then you can ask what your work values are. Now, work values are kind of similar, but they can be a little bit different. For example, at work, do you value things like security, or freedom and independence, or time flexibility, or teamwork, or helping others? Think about what your personal values are and your work values are. I suggest completing a values clarification exercise. A lot of times I have people do that so that we can really narrow these down, kind of hone in on what the personal and the work values are. And then we compare those to what's going on in your current situation. And if you're considering doing something else, we compare that to what positions you're looking for. We identify your must-haves, your deal breakers, and some of the things that will ensure that you have a high level of satisfaction at work. Again, we're talking about personal strategies here, folks. When it boils down to it, that's the thing that you have the most control over, or when we think about whether you are satisfied at work, the thing that you have most control over is yourself. So this is what we're talking about. So let's look at some of these personal strategies. First of all, assess your alignment. And when I say alignment, we're talking about all those things that I mentioned before. If you want to get back on track, reinvigorate your passion for work, recharge your batteries at work, here are some things that you're going to want to do. The alignment, we're talking about, look at your personality and your work style. Look at your goals, look at your values, and see if those really are a good fit for your job. If you have some question about that, or if you feel like they aren't, do some exploration, improve some skills, and we'll talk about that in a second. Influence your work environment or culture. We'll talk about that in a second. Improve your career decision making. So if it is necessary to maybe switch roles within your organization, or teams, or locations, you don't necessarily have to leave your job to fall in love with it again. What you can do maybe is figure out what can be adjusted, including different assignments, different locations, different positions. If one of your personal or work values is learning and knowledge and growth, professional growth, then maybe it might be time to learn something new and kind of stretch and see if it's time to do something completely different, but within your same organization. I know that sounds scary and radical to some people, but I've seen people do it, and it can make all the difference when we talk about aligning your work style, your personality, your goals, and your values with what you're doing when you go to work every day. It can make all the difference in the world as far as job satisfaction goes. The next one, avoid negative people and situations. I don't know that I have to say much about this. I've already talked about the energy drains. I've already talked about reducing environmental toxins. So if that means making sure that you can create an environment where you reduce your exposure to negativity, then that's what you do. And I know it's harder sometimes to do than it is to say, but I'm saying it anyway. Take a look at that in your work environment. Work on your communication skills. And you might be wondering, what does this have to do with job satisfaction? Well, I'll tell you what, assertiveness is something that I talk about quite a bit. When you are assertive at work, when you flex that muscle, when you use that skill, you are more likely to identify how you're feeling in a work situation, to be able to express that to other people, to be able to make requests of others for either behavior change or addressing cultural issues. You certainly will be able to better get your needs met at work. And if your needs are getting met at work, chances are you're more satisfied with your job. You're happier at work. So this is why I talk about communication skills. While you're at it, look at conflict resolution skills. While you're at it, look at emotional and social intelligence. These are all things that you don't necessarily have to be born with. They're all skills you can learn, and they can make a big difference in how you, not just how you work, but how you live with other people. The next one is treat your job like it's your own business. So if it is already your own business, you're probably already doing that, and that's great. But if you work at an organization that you do not own, one of the things I have found over the years is it's helpful to treat your department, your area, your team, your work team, your set of responsibilities as if you are running your own separate business. And what I mean by that is, take a look at what the mission is of your area, of your job. I'm not talking about your company's mission statement. Your company obviously has a mission statement, but why not have a mission that is in alignment with your company's mission statement, that is just about the services that you provide, just about the problems that you help people solve, just about what you are in existence for, or what you are here to do. Once you do that, you get laser focused on your goals, your objectives, and it can help re-engage you in that work process, because now you're working not only for something larger than yourself, but for something that makes a difference right here and right now. Think about your brand. Think about your personal brand. Think about your department's brand or your work team's brand, and market that to other people within your organization or to your clients or guests. Make sure that you're clear on what you stand for as an individual, as a small group within your larger organization. This may help you, again, to feel more connected, not just to your job, but to other people. Know your worth. Know what you contribute. If you had your own organization, you would set prices for things. You would know how much you charge and how much your services that you provide are worth. Do that within your organization as well. Make a list of the things that you bring to the table or that your team brings to the organization, and understand the worth. List your strengths, your personal strengths, and your personal skills. This not only helps when you are at a job, but it can help when you make the decision to explore other options. You can certainly use that to be able to market yourself. So think about that in your organization. Also, the last one I have here on this list is be a mentor or find a mentor. If any of you have ever worked with a mentor, here's the thing that it can certainly kind of refocus you in a particular direction or in a particular field or area of work. It will help you to expand your networking. And it's not just for your networking opportunities, but it helps you hone your survival skills in a particular field. You get to kind of learn insider tricks and secrets that may help your time there to feel a little less painful and a little more productive and more enjoyable. You will learn about new opportunities if you get matched with the right mentor and the right program. And it doesn't have to be a formal program. It can be an informal mentoring program. So, and of course, you can learn about different career paths. You may not have known that there were as many career paths within your organization or within your field that there actually are. So if you work with a mentor, this might be a way to help re-engage you and help you feel passionate about what you're doing. If you are a mentor, think about this. It can really help you appreciate what you do or what you have been doing. When you are able to share your knowledge and experience with someone else, when you're able to see what you do through the eyes of a newcomer, of somebody who's just starting out, it kind of reminds you of this excitement that you had when you first entered the industry. You get a new sense of wonder about small things that we a lot of times will take for granted in our work environments. When you take on a mentee, when you take on someone who you can help develop and grow, uh, it certainly can be rewarding and fulfilling, and it can certainly help you to, reinforces your network as well, but it can certainly help you to have a new appreciation for your job. Let's look at some more personal strategies here. Obviously, set goals. It doesn't make any sense to go to work every day and not know what you're wanting to accomplish and not know if you're getting closer to it or further away from it. So if you set goals, short-term, mid-term, long-term goals, that sense of accomplishment when you get to check something off or when you finally get to achieve that goal, there's nothing like it. So definitely set goals. If you don't know how to do that, talk to somebody who can help you, your mentor, a coach, talk to somebody who can help you do that. Take regular breaks for yourself, schedule time for yourself, practice mindfulness and being in the present moment and working with intention and being deliberate about what you do and slowing down. If you need to, negotiate how much break time you need, not just at work, but at home as well. Make sure that you negotiate that because you want to take enough time for yourself that when you return back, you are feeling refreshed and ready to go. Of course, set realistic expectations for yourself. This is going to reduce the anxiety associated with feeling like there aren't enough hours in the day, or you don't have enough time, or you don't have enough resources, or you don't have enough support. Sometimes we just need to adjust our expectations to feel more accomplished. And so, making sure that our expectations are realistic means that we actually do get to check boxes off and we don't leave things unaccomplished and unfulfilled because we don't feel like we're able to. We have to make sure that the bar isn't set so high that we're never able to accomplish it. Of course, laugh. Find the humor in things, have fun. In some work environments that's easier to do than in others. But there are lots of studies that are done, lots of research that's done on what happens with employee engagement and happiness and satisfaction when they're able to have fun at work, whatever that means for you. I don't know what kind of work environment you're in, but certainly having fun could mean, on a Friday, sharing a movie. And you don't even have to be in person with everyone. And right now it's hard to get together and do anything fun, but, movies can be watched all together remotely and virtually. Games can be played while everybody is in their own personal space. So think about ways to really have fun with your coworkers or at work that you may not have thought of before based on our current situation, whatever those are. The last one I love is get a life. And the reason that I put that there is, work doesn't have to be one-stop shopping, and it actually shouldn't be one-stop shopping. You can't get all your needs met in a job. And so what that means is you are going to have to figure out what your other interests are, what your other hobbies are. How are you spending your time when you're not working? One of the downsides for a lot of people to working at home is that your work life and your home life are blurred together. The only thing that means I'm off working at home now is pushing one button. And so it may be hard for some of us, again, to be taking phone calls on off hours or monitoring our emails or things like that. And so, when you're not at work, what is it that you're doing? Reestablish or establish a social network. You do not have to be in person to talk to someone over a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and doing things that, don't have anything to do with work. Join something, join a group, or create something, create a group. And I bet many of you have good ideas for a lot of this. And I'm not seeing a chat, so maybe we have a Q&A, but feel free to put your comments in there if anything comes up for you. But I'm sure there are lots of creative ways to be responsible, but also to be social. I know that I created a skate club. I roller skate with a couple of friends. And so we're outdoors, we're spread apart, but it's a way just to not be having work conversations. So you will have a greater appreciation for your work when you're not always doing it or you're not always thinking about it. That's the bottom line. So figure out in what ways you can really extend your life past the workplace. And sometimes that means past the computer or past the phone. All right, so we talked about personal strategies and solutions. Let's go ahead and take a look at some things that you can do to address your work environment. The very first one there is address your culture. Now, culture is that's a big term. It's a loaded term. And culture means basically just the way that things are done at work for you. If you feel like your personal goals and values and priorities and work style or any of those things are not in alignment with your organization's culture, there are limited things that you can do. You can do things to address that culture. I don't know how much influence you have, but think about what parts of your culture could use some fixing or paying attention to. Even if you move the needle a little bit, just that activity could provide a little more motivation for you to feel better at work. So, what are the things in your culture that you could address? Is it how your company views time or taking time off? Is it how your company treats people or how people are treated or talk to each other within your organization? Is it that in your company there seems to be lacking a sense of community? Some of these things you can directly address just by modeling certain behaviors or by influencing others or just within your small group. So one of the things that you can do to re-energize, reconnect, re-engage, reinvigorate your passion for work is to start to do things that address the culture of your organization. Clarifying roles. Let's think about this. There is nothing more exhausting than not knowing who's supposed to be doing what, or who's responsible for what, or who's supposed to answer to whom, for example. So clarifying roles is going to be really important. And that's something that could be addressed with just a simple conversation or an email or, a brief meeting or a memo, whatever it is. This is something that is going to stop that drain, that energy drain, and maybe reverse some of that exhaustion you feel by just talking to multiple people or going behind other people and having one person tell you one thing and another person tell you something else. So clarify roles. I like this next one, designing your physical environment, making sure that you are working in a space that feels good for you and comfortable, that makes you happy, that brings joy to what you do. If you like greenery and plants, make sure that you have plenty of that. If you like sunlight, work somewhere where you can feel the sun, coming through the window. If you like a cushy chair or a ball chair or whatever it is, just put that in your environment. Put up pictures of things that make you happy, sunsets and puppies and kids and grandkids, whatever it is. Incorporate that into the place that you're going to spend really the second most time in your life, if not the most amount of time in your life. Make it comfortable, make it yours. Redesign jobs and schedules. I think we all probably have been figuring out how to do that, but understand the times that you feel most productive, understand what's going to work best. Everybody's schedules look a little different now. Again, many of us have kids at home trying to figure out schooling and things like that. Redesign that job. Think about job sharing. Think about adjusted schedules and flexing time and later start times or earlier start times, depending on your job. That may be possible. And these are things that can almost instantly increase employees' levels of job satisfaction. So ask about that. Make your work meaningful, whatever that means for you. Again, look at your personal values, look at your work values. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? And, do I have a sense of purpose? If you can do something that is meaningful to you, obviously you're going to have a high level of satisfaction. And then, of course, promote wellness in your workplace. Make sure that people understand that they are supported. And if you are a person who doesn't have a lot of influence over your workplace, then find out what the resources are at your workplace to feel okay. Many workplaces offer lots of really good, rich resources, and most of the time they're free to employees. If you just have to do sometimes a little bit of research to find out what resources are available to you to feel okay. And that could mean coaching. That could mean groups. That could mean all kinds of things, really. But just, maybe take a look at that in your work environment. So with this information that we've talked about, I'm leaving a couple of moments for Q&A if you have any, but with this information that we've talked about today, I have one final kind of journaling question for you. What 2 things can I do? And this is something that you answer for yourself. What 2 things can I do to reinvigorate my passion for work and overcome employment exhaustion? So this is the point at which I would like for you to maybe jot down a couple of things based on today's talk that you could maybe try to help you feel like you're getting back on track for work and feeling a higher level of satisfaction. So I'll give you a moment to do that, to just kind of come up with 2 things. If anybody wants to share their 2 things, I would love to hear that right now. If you'd like to share anything, I guess we can use, again, I think we can, I don't know if chat is working, but we can use our Q&A. Hi, Anthony. Yep, Q&A.
Hi. We
Wonderful.
both have the Q&A feature and the chat feature. So again, submit your questions to Nelandra on either the chat or the Q&A. Just to go over on like the presentation, I think you hit the spot on how to like make changes when you're feeling a little bit of employee burnout, like when you're exhausted. And I think many of us, I mean, I could say for myself that yes, we can make these changes, we can do things, we can address the culture, we can do all those, but there's a little bit of that fear that if we do act upon these strategies, we might get some pushback. Do you have any advice on like how to overcome that?
Well, I guess it depends on what we mean by pushback. There, I just thought of something that my mom always used to say, that a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And so, and the worst thing another thing my mom used to say is the worst thing that somebody could say if you ask is no. And so I guess it depends on what the pushback means. It depends on how you address the situation. It depends on how you ask the question. Like I said, we're not trying to change the world overnight. We're trying to just move the needle a little bit on culture. And sometimes that means just asking, hey, I had an idea to start a little group where we could talk about de-stressing. Do we have any resources in-house or any resources that are available to us to just talk about stress at work? I think it might help me and it may help other people. What do you think? Again, if you ask a question like that, the worst thing somebody can say is no. I would hope somebody wouldn't say no and you're fired, because if they said that, then maybe you are not working in the right place.
Yeah. And then maybe your values are not aligned with, the organization, and it is your time to leave. Absolutely.
Potentially. But again, we're not at that. We're going to cross that bridge only if we get to it, because today we're talking about love it, don't leave it. That's what we're talking about today. Maybe I'll do another talk called Love It or Leave It.
Or leave it.
Thanks, Anthony. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to take them. Or if anybody wants to share their 1 or 2 things that they are committing to do. I love when people do that, when they share. It's more likely that it'll happen. Did you know that if you write things down, like goals or commitments or intentions, it is more likely to happen if you write it down, but it's exponentially more likely to happen if you tell another person, if you tell somebody. So I hope somebody tells. If not, that's okay. The writing down should be.
And if not, or they're not comfortable to put on a chat feature, how would they submit those questions to you?
Oh, certainly. Here, I'll put up here we go. I have some contact information. Feel free to contact me. Ask me a question. Give me a call. Email me. Text me at that number. Whatever you want to do is fine. But yeah, if you'd like to, have a deeper conversation, a more private conversation about this stuff, feel free to do that. Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate that. Thanks for reminding me. I have one more slide.
Yes. Well, once again, we want to thank Nelandra Anselmo for delivering a wonderful presentation on loving your job. Don't leave it. Um, Also, for anyone who has jumped in halfway, we will and missed out on the first half, we'll provide a recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe to us at TISOH channel. And we'll also have this updated on the Facebook Live video feature. Once again, thank you all for attending tonight's webinar. This concludes our TISOH Fall Hospitality Speaker Series, and we'll have many more planned in the spring of the 2021 season. Again, thank you and have a great night.